So TreeFolks been around since the late 80s, 1989, I think officially, 88, December 21, 1988. A group of friends came together and decided to start planting some trees, decided that way to address, back then in the 80s, people were talking a lot about deforestation in the Amazon, but generally there was beginnings of somewhat heightened awareness about the importance of tree canopy. So some of our neighbors took that as their cause, and over the years, from what began as just a private initiative of few individuals, slowly they got community involved, and today TreeFolks have 19 staff. We've been around for over 30 years. We have 4 different programs. One of the most iconic programs is the tree adoption. Maybe you're familiar. We give away for adoption fruit and shade trees every year for Austin residents or Austin Energy customers. 2 trees per household. We've been doing it for years. And we also do community planting. Ready, Set, Plant is our program that focuses on planting in parks, schools, and with community in different neighborhoods. And finally, the program that uses the most trees is the large-scale reforestation. We had, in response to wildfires in Bastrop, we were planting some loblolly pines over there. So that is one of our big past reforestation projects. Another one was Trees for Blanco. That was in response to the floods, the 2015 Memorial Day floods. And currently, our biggest reforestation program is Central Texas floodplain reforestation that involves not only Travis, but also the 6 surrounding counties. And we are focusing mainly on restoration of riparian habitats. That means the riparian buffers along streams, rivers, and bodies of water. We have various partners. One of the most important partners is a watershed protection department, obviously. And we work also with a lot of private landowners. Anybody that resides in these 7 counties that has a property with some degraded riparian habitat or environment can apply with TreeFolks and can get these areas restored or replanted with native trees at no cost to them. The way we pay for it is partially through carbon credits through the city of Austin. So that's pretty exciting program. Here are some more details about the carbon credits. There are few strings attached for the landowners, obviously, if we will go through the process of planting trees on their property. We want to make sure that they stay there. So they need to commit for 25 years. They won't touch them. That's one of the conditions also for us to be able, obviously, to apply for these carbon credits. And the ultimate goal is to offset, impacts of climate change and repair what's been damaged, because historically a lot of people didn't follow the best, land management practices. They just felt that it was a good idea. It looked good to, clear cut everything all the way down to the river. And that's obviously not such a great idea, because as we know, these habitats play a very important role in the ecosystem. Here we can see a little map where, of course, most of the historical sites where we did this reforestation is on the east side of Travis County, but also Bastrop and Hayes, and we are expanding to other counties through outreach. So if you know anybody who potentially could be interested in this, just let them know. Let them know about TreeFolks and about this program. We can get in touch with them and, you know, explain a little bit more. And I think it's something that really landowners and the land can benefit greatly from. Here we can see a map. This is nice visualization of the worst affected areas. You see that following the different tributaries, creeks and rivers in red, those are the areas that need the most our intervention. And now the issue is that we ran into over the years is that there's simply not enough trees. There's not enough trees of the species that we need, because we are planting native plants, obviously, locally adapted. So not only native species, but also native species grown whenever we can from seeds that was locally collected here in Central Texas, because you might find the same species in Arkansas. You know, a lot of big nurseries source the seeds anywhere. Species is a species, you know. But for us, it's important to preserve the genes, the genetic profile of those plants that come from our area. And we believe that they will be best equipped to withstand what's coming. So we don't have enough trees, because although the situation with native plants changed over the last, I would say, 30 years, homeowners are a little bit more open to planting native plants, but not nearly enough. There are a few species that people kind of warmed up to that entered the mainstream, but there's so many species that just people, and they have also ornamental value possibly, right? But people don't know about them enough, or don't feel comfortable, or maybe they have thorns or something, you know. So the problem in the industry is, if people, or if there's no market, nobody's going to grow them, right? Who would grow, like, I don't know, black willows, or when was the last time you saw a cottonwood at the nursery, right? So TreeFolks identified this problem in supply, and a study was done, feasibility study, to see if TreeFolks could start their own nursery and their own seed collection program. That way we can grow whatever we need, right? And have more control over the supply. So finally, last year, after months or years of preparations and a feasibility study, I took this visual from that feasibility study. So that's not how it looks yet, but hopefully maybe in 3, 4, 5 years, that's where we're gonna get. I was hired in June of 2023, and that's when the program officially started. And the key functions of this program is obviously seed collection, because without seeds, we cannot grow anything. Then growing trees, saplings, and mainly saplings, because that's the size that we need for those large-scale reforestation. Those are saplings that are at the most a year old, maybe 10 months, 8 months, you know, and they are being planted by tens of thousands on acres and acres. Some of them will be potted up and grown out to up to 5-gallon size, but probably that's where we're gonna stop, because 5-gallon trees, those bigger trees, we need them for parks or for our neighborhoods program for homeowners, right? And another important role of this nursery, it's also supporting existing growers, because it's going to take us years before we become self-sufficient, if ever. We will still be buying trees from other nurseries. And generally, we are interested in improving and strengthening the industry, maybe through education, creating more demand for those trees. If there's more demand, people will grow them, right? And finally, training future growers. That's a big mission of our nursery as well. Young people a lot of growers that we work with, there's a lot of them in the valley. We will talk about it a little bit later. There's a reason for that, because the U.S. Fish and Wildlife been several decades, since 1984. So they've been working on reforestation of the Rio Grande wildlife corridor down on the border. So there is a lot of small growers of native plants, but they're all in their 60s, 70s. And so there is need to attract young people and show them that potentially that's a career, an important one. So now I guess I should talk a little bit about myself, just so you know where I come from and how I ended up at TreeFolks. So as I said, I started, it hasn't been a year yet, June 2023. Originally, I come from Prague, from Czech Republic, been in Texas for the last 15 years. My wife is from South Texas, and my family, this is my family back in 1930s. The little boy in the middle is my grandfather. On their land, they were farmers. They had about 120 acres, but just sustenance. They were feeding themselves and maybe selling little surplus. Yeah, they were farmers until 1948. Then the communists took over and nationalized all the land and everything, and there was no more private ownership of land. Anyway, when I was a kid, that's me with my grandpa in the 80s. I am a city boy, but during the summers, I spend all my summers with my grandpa, who reproduced on like 2 acres the whole farm. So he had like, he shrunk, he was trained and raised to be a farmer. Then the communists took all the land and he was left with 2 acres. So he scaled it down and he had a little bit of everything. I cannot say that I always loved it. You know, sometimes it's summer, you want to go play or do something, and I was there weeding potatoes or whatever was needed, right? But as I grew older, I got to appreciate it. You know, oftentimes, yeah, you don't later, years later, you recognize value of things. And when I came to the United States, you know, as often happens, you need to retrain yourself, start over. My original background is in linguistics, but when I came to the US, I went back to school. I studied biology, and then I ended up working for Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service, doing school gardens, community gardens. So my big background is in horticulture. I was doing that work in the Valley during Michelle Obama's years, when she had a lot of those grants for healthy eating and so on. And that's where I met one of the growers of native plants, Benito Trevino. It's a quite famous botanist down in the Valley. He's in Stark County, been doing it for probably 30 years. As I mentioned before, there is a lot of growers in the Valley because of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. For decades, they've been bidding out probably about 300,000 native trees every year. So there is growers that partially rely on those contracts and grow these native plants for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So there is a wealth of knowledge down there. And I was lucky to be mentored by some of these growers down there. So I wanted to play just a quick little video that summarizes a little bit the work of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, because a lot of stuff that we do here in Austin at our nursery, it's modeled on their system, on the things that they discovered as best practices. So I just wanted to share this real quick. Let's see.
We see a future of all these different species. The nursery is the starting place for all the larger strategic planning for restoration. All these goals that we have, realizing restoration of thousands of acres, you know, well, we don't have that nursery capacity, we don't have the seeding coming out of the nursery. Then at the end of the day, all of that is kind of, you know, really irrelevant. Sites left alone will not be covered on them. They actually require that we do that work. When containerized seeding requires a lot more human input, a lot more nursery time, and actually a lot more expense. Putting it out on the ground is clearly the way to go. We get 92 to 97% survivorship on our seedlings. The seed sources itself really need to be listened to. So we source everything here and grow everything pretty much here. A lot of this stuff is going to be science driven. There's a real need to dig in all the research and study examples before we implement them on a much larger scale. The timing component is really understand the chronology of the plants. So when they start to flower and start to create their fruits or their seeds, and when they're mature enough to collect them.
The pods, whether they fall down, these are ready to be collected and they make a rousing sound, so it's not like a barata type of thing. We plant the seeds, and it takes them like a year for them to like fully develop to the right size for them to be able to be used in the field for restoration projects. The little capsules that are surrounding each of the things, they're used to plant quickly, and then they biodegrade.
It requires a very customized technical approach, and we're getting good germination rates. Got to keep track of watering the different species at different rates. We're basically having benches with thousands and thousands of plants, like a giant insect line. We actually do a lot of it by hand. Part of restoration goes to start up in the hands of folks that have been doing this for decades.
The stuff that are doing nursery growing right now, they're older generations.
Well, we really needed extra capacity, support, and at times, so many different things that we can't really provide with our staff. Just handing off that information, that knowledge to the younger generations of folks who kind of take that torch up and carry it forward. I won't be thinking ahead in terms of how we are planning our restoration, how we'll be doing that in such a way that we're thinking ahead. The approach here really has to be built around science. You know, I think that's pretty much the everything that you do.
Right. So that was the little video. Those big pods, that's Texas ebony. We have some of it here, like farther south. I think somewhere like north of San Antonio, you would find it, but not as a big tree because usually it freezes during big freezes, freezes to the ground. Down in the valley, you see them as big trees, very hard wood. Yeah, you can eat them too when they are like not fully ripe. They're edible. Anyway, so yeah, I was mentored by one of these growers, Benito Trevino. There is another one, James Lovegren. He is in Harlingen. He is actually our advisor, and he's very handy at building different contraptions that we use around the nursery, because a lot of things you need to customize. You cannot buy them, or you need to come up with a solution, right? I will now delve a little bit more into the details. I hope that that's something that's of interest to you. But so first part, it's sourcing, processing, and storing these seeds. We launched our seed collection program. That's all volunteer driven. We collaborate with Central Texas Seed Savers. That's our big partner on that. They help us organize and lead tree ID walks. So if you go on TreeFolks website, there is a calendar. If you are interested in learning more about these native woody species, we have regular tree ID walks all around the city, different parts. 1 month it can be in the south, next month in the north, in different parks. And you can learn more about native trees, identify them, and also potentially learn when their seeds are ready. And if you are interested, you could help us then collect those seeds and send them to us. We have a lot of volunteers that do that. It could be also in your backyard, your neighbor. There's a list of species on our website under the seed collection section. There's a list of species that we most need. We tend to update it based on the time of the year, so we don't put species that are not fruiting in that time. And so you can take a look and see if it's there, you have it in your backyard, please send us the seeds. Then we process them, we store them at our office. We are located, maybe you know that we are in Hornsby Bend, behind the solid waste plant, you know, processing plant in that floodplain there. It's a beautiful part of Austin. We are like a mile from the river. And we have our little office with a big industrial refrigerator, which is our seed vault. And let's see, this is our seed vault. This is how it looks inside. It's getting more organized by day. We were able to catch up with our backlog of seeds that are all alphabetized. We have an inventory. We use USDA symbols and then progressive numbers for accessions. So we know, we keep them separate, obviously. Like we have probably 30 different collections of Buckeyes, you know, people bring Buckeyes, we enter them separately, and we collect some information also. We have a form, we ask people to fill it out, just, you know, the location, where you collected it, when, name of the person, so we know if we need to ask something or if we need to send you a thank you note, but we keep them separately and organized. You can see here a little bit how that looks. And we use that refrigerator also to stratify some of our seeds. You can see on the top shelf, some of the seeds are already stratified in vermiculite, ready to go, ready to be planted in the next few weeks. That's that picture is from today. I did some scarification because, as you know, native seeds are tricky, right? They're not like your vegetable seeds, right? Because vegetable seeds, over thousands of years, we selected them. They all germinate more or less at the same time, right? Which is great for your garden. It would be a bad idea for a tree, right? If after a first rain, all the seeds just germinate and then a drought comes. And so obviously, from the, you know, reproduction perspective, the trees stagger their germination, which is a problem in a nursery. You know, if I plant the seed and then 10% comes out, and then I'm gonna be waiting for the next 20%, 6 more months, that's not gonna work. So we need to treat them in different ways. We have some material, some reference. Probably you're familiar with this book. That's still a Bible of any grower of native plants in Texas, Jill Noakes. It's by no means complete, but it's a great reference. And then we have this manual that you probably, some of you are familiar with as well, USDA, the Woody Plant Seed Manual. You can find it for free in PDF. If you are interested, I can forward it to you if you can find it, but it's sort of open source. You can find it. It's awesome. There's like years of trials of different people trying everything, and usually there are some good protocols, but for some species we have just recommendation. Try this, maybe you get 60%. That's the exciting thing. That's where the volunteers and the public and the new growers come in, because you can try it, you know, in your backyard or in your home, germinating those seeds, and let us know how it went, because we obviously run our own trials, but the more trials we run, the more discoveries we will make, right? So I was doing some acid scarification in that picture below. If you were looking for sulfuric acid, concentrated sulfuric acid, look for liquid fire. It's a drain opener. I don't know what you would have to do to your toilet that you need to use that kind of stuff. It's 96% concentrated sulfuric acid, but it's a cheap source of sulfuric acid. And I have some in that picture, that's mountain laurel, those orange big seeds. You could scarify them by hand. You could nick them with your clippers. You could use a file or sandpaper. We plant hundreds of them. Acid is pretty practical solution. Next to it, there is some Huizache in that little jar. So as an example, mountain laurel, 60 minutes in concentrated sulfuric acid, then neutralized, rinsed several times. And then I put it in aeration. That's a aquarium pump. And you know, just air. They need air. Sometimes they can sit there, some of them for 3 days, some of them for week, even 10 days. Specifically, for example, those mountain laurels, every day I keep pulling the ones that show radical that are already sprouting. I pull them out and I plant them. And so aeration is very important. Now, how we set up our growing environment? What do we use? In that first picture, that rendering, you saw some big greenhouses. Well, we don't have those yet. We are working on some permits with the city of Austin. We have a bunch of pipes sitting in our behind our building. We do have the greenhouses. We don't have them assembled yet. You don't necessarily need a greenhouse to grow native plants, because if you start in the spring and then you transplant them in the fall, November, December, they should be just fine. They're native, so they should survive. The problem is if you keep the roots exposed, if they are in a container, the roots are exposed, they are not in the ground, then even natives, obviously with the freeze, will freeze. But we'll try to do our timing this year, right? So maybe we won't need those big greenhouses yet. We set up some benches, such as these. Now, these are plant banks that we use to grow our saplings. You see, it comes flat in a box like this. It's like milk carton. You can, if you want to just see them, touch them. It's milk carton material, and it doesn't have a bottom, as you can see. There's no bottom. Any ideas why there's no bottom? Roots. Drainage, yes, but root, what happens to the root if there is no bottom? I should say, look at those benches also. Yeah, that's the other piece of information. Then they sit on those benches in wooden frames, and there's airflow underneath. Now I gave it away. Air pruning, yes, root pruning. Because as you know, most of our native trees have a taproot, right? Which is great. If you ever try, you know, like in the spring, you see a bunch of pecan saplings in your backyard, or little oaks. Oh, how cute. I'm going to dig them up. I'm going to put them up. Probably you all tried that, right? So when you have a little oak sapling that's like 4 or 5 inches, that root's going to be a foot probably by then, right? And it's just one taproot. If you break that, then that's it, right? So with this system, once the taproot hits the air, it stops growing, and all those lateral roots start developing, and it allows for a much more fibrous and robust root system, which will be advantageous to the sapling once it's transplanted. This is 97% biodegradable, 3% plastic. It's bad, but we are planting trees, so I think hopefully we can get away with it. It's very convenient. It's practical. You can plant in a small space, tens of thousands of saplings. I will show you these benches that you see on the right-hand side are 4 feet wide and 40 feet long. One of those benches can accommodate 9,000 of these. So 9,000 saplings on one of those benches. As you can see, we are building a shade structure on top of it. These are the frames that we use to hold them in place. Wooden frames, 1x6, precisely measured and assembled so they fit nice and snug. And now this is how it looks once they are filled and seeded. Let me show you a little more detail. This is a little tool that we use to square them, because we used to square them by hand, just make them square and try to put them in a box, which requires a lot of fine motor skills and a lot of patience. And our volunteers, not everybody could do it. It took me, when I first learned that, probably several months, but it's useless skill. It's not very transferable unless you're going to make origami or something. We came up with this grid, so you can stick them on that grid. in this pattern, you need to, it's very important to do the alternating pattern, because once you square them, all those forces will cancel each other. So I tell my volunteers always, look, it's gotta be all stars and flowers like this. Then we put little wooden frame, nice and square. And then we put them in, hold on, that's the next slide. We put them in a milk crate, 8 by 8. At the bottom of that milk crate, there is a piece of yard sign to provide like a bottom, right? And now we need to fill it with soil. This is a little contraption that I will demonstrate in a minute. We have this fancy sifter. It's like an automatic sifter that works pretty well. So we sift our soil. We use 50% native soil. Right there, a mile from us, there is a pit. It's kind of sandy loam. You don't want it too much clay. You don't want it too sandy. It needs to be just the right thing. We mix it with vermiculite, 50-50, and we add some slow release fertilizer. And then we put it in that crate. We put it on that little wooden contraption. And then, let's see. Can I? So this is how we pack them. Several times we need to pound it. This contraption looks like it would make it more heavier, but it's actually an improvement. Originally, we were trying to just drop the crates like that without anything on the ground, and that didn't work very well because they would bounce. So after this, you will end up with 64 out of 9,000 or whatever you're growing. So let me speed it up a little bit here.
Can you mention your soil mix again, the soil recipe?
Okay, so we use, that's basically what the U.S. Fish and Wildlife use, 50% native soil. It should be sandy loam, kind of more sandy than loam, and 50% medium vermiculite, not coarse, not fine, medium. And then 12 ounces of Osmocote. It should be 12, the one, not the strongest one. 8-month release, it's good. 12 ounces per 10 gallons of this mixture. So if you look at it like 1 bucket of soil, 1 bucket of vermiculite, 12 ounces of Osmocote. Then we pack it, and then we use different mixture for the topping. We leave 1.5 inches on top of space, so we can put the seed, and then we cover the seed with a mixture of fine peat moss. I use Sunshine Mix number 3 with probably 10% sand to make it heavier. You don't want anything that would crust over the seed. You want something that will retain the moisture and also have some weight on the seed, right? So that's what I use for the topping. And let me see. So yeah, you can see that there's something on top already. This is how we, when we empty it from the crate, we put them in this frame like this. All right, let's keep going. These are volunteer seeding. Now we try to direct seed most of whatever we can because it's less work. If you can plant a seed instead of trying to transplant little seedling from a flat, that's much more fiddly. Maybe it won't survive, you know. Now some of them we need to do from flats because either the seed is tiny, like mulberry. How are you gonna plant like mulberry direct seeded, right? So even like sycamores, we grow in flats and then we transplant them. But if we can, we pre-germinate seeds, direct seed, and then I keep 10%, about 10% of seed that I planted, I put in a flat because not all of them will come up. So I can go back and have then seedlings of the same age to fill in the gaps. So that's what we are trying to do. And our volunteers are involved in every step of this process, mixing the soil, planting the seeds, building, anything that's required and necessary for our operation. Now, supporting current growers, I mentioned that. Yeah, we are trying to promote native plants. And of course, we are buying from reputable growers of native plants as well. And that's about it. These are our partners. See, Central Texas Seed Savers, some nurseries, the city of Austin, obviously the different departments that we work with. And finally, if you need to get in touch with us, this is our contact information. Now, we have a little bit of time for your questions. But I would like you to, if you get a chance, come visit us. We have regular nursery work days on Wednesdays and Thursdays for the foreseeable future, because right now we are like, it's crunch time for us. We are filling plant bands, planting. Our goal for this year is 50,000. That needs to happen in the next couple of months. We have a small greenhouse, so we can extend a little bit our sort of seeding, growing season, because it's temperature controlled. It's not big. It's like 12 by 36. We can fit probably 10,000 saplings in it, but allows us to control the temperature with shade cloth and water cooler. Even when it's 110 outside, it's below 90 in the greenhouse. So that's important for planting seeds, fresh seeds. A lot of seeds are best planted when they are fresh before they go dormant. Texas persimmon, you eat it, you plant it. That's the best. If you dry it or store it, refrigerate it, it will go dormant, and then you need to do stratification back and forth, cold, warm, maybe. So in the summer, we are still planting seeds even when outside is too hot, that nothing would germinate outside. So come visit us if you want to help us. If not, you can still get involved in our seed collection program. That would be great. Visit our website, treefolks.org. And questions? Yes? Oh, yeah, it's on our website. It's Flatline. Let me see where I can find it. Let me pull up our website, actually. That would be the most, so I can demonstrate where you find all the information. This is our website. If you go on here, plant, these are our 4 programs. Native Tree Seed Collection Program, you click here, and you will find all the information here. So the form is here, species list, okay? For example, species list is right here. There's all the information, what to do with it, remove, pulp, whatever. Those are recommendations, don't worry about it. If you don't have time to clean it, if you clean it, we have people who send them in neat, beautiful baggies, all clean. I love that. If you don't have time, I will accept seeds in any condition, but if you don't process them, just send them quickly or drop them off before they start to mold or rot. So this is the address is here, TreeFolks on Platte Lane. All right, any other questions? Oh, sorry.
More about kind of the process of stratification.
Sure.
If I just like an ordinary person wanted to get some sulfuric acid.
Okay, so there are 2 things that would prevent seed from germinating. Dormancy broadly, but there is hard seed coat. Some of the seeds have very hard, thick seed coat. Good example would be most of acacias, mountain laurel, and soapberry. Persimmon, it's more embryo dormancy. We'll get to that. But the seed coat, prevents the moisture, the water to get to the embryo. So it cannot imbibe, it cannot swell and start germinating, right? So mountain laurel, if it falls on the ground, you know, it might be there for a year, maybe a couple of years. When it gets weathered enough, the seed coat gets disrupted, or some animal scratches it, or an avalanche, or I don't know what. The water gets in. Suddenly, you should see those seeds that I treated with acid tomorrow. They will be like pinto beans when you put them in a pot overnight. They will be like triple the size, nice and squishy and soft. So once the water gets in, for a lot of seeds, that's all they need. So either I don't know, I shouldn't mention that. I don't want to be responsible. Be careful with that acid if you decide to do it, okay? Wear gloves, wear, you know, eye protection. If you're gonna be doing 10 seeds, don't bother. Just don't. It's not worth it. If you do large quantities, yes, use acid. If not, I saw a guy that built himself, bought somewhere at the pawn shop, old sand, you know, band sander, and build little wooden box. He puts the seeds there, and with a block of like styrofoam or something, slightly pushes on them. And so mechanically, that mechanic abrasion, you could do it by hand with a file, whatever. So that's one thing, the seed coat. Some of the seeds, that's all they need. Some seeds don't have hard seed coat, but have what's called embryo dormancy. Basically, they require some stimuli for the seeds to be able to say, oh, okay, the conditions are favorable, I need to germinate. Usually, that's the winter, cold, and moisture. Because what would happen? Think about even like pecans, right? Or walnuts. They fall in the ground, the squirrel buries them, they sit in the ground, they go through the period of cold weather. Peach pits or any stone fruit that you will grow from pit needs that period of cold, then it warms up again, and that signals to the seed that winter is over, it's spring, it's time to germinate. You can replicate that with the refrigerator. So you put them in moist medium, stick them in the refrigerator for a month, 2, 3, depending on species. Now, some seeds can have both hard coat and embryo dormancy. Then you need to do both. Like with, for example, soberry. I acid treated it, then put it in the refrigerator, and some seeds require alternating, because those are seeds, for example, yaupon. It's full of seeds everywhere. You would think that you planted, it grows. No, it's actually kind of tricky to germinate. So that requires like pulsing between warm and cold stratification. So cold stratification for a couple of months, then you pull it out, warm stratification, cold. I guess that mimics like multiple years, maybe like 3 years have passed, you know, and then the seed will sprout. So this is very good reference. You can still find it, I think, if you don't have it. And if not, if anybody is interested in this one, it's more complete, even more scientific, all sorts of different trials, what people tried. It has all the information here too. You can send me an email. I'll send you a PDF. More questions? Yes?
I've been trying to grow lobster, and so I've always heard that some seeds do better when they pass through the animal's digestive system.
That's right.
So whenever I find a lot of persimmons,
In scat.
yeah, in animal, I just throw them where I want them. I've never had them come out. So what am I doing wrong?
Well, it depends. You don't know what happened to the seed, right? Like who
I've done this for years now. It hasn't worked.
Yeah. Well, probably something ate it before it could sprout. I would just try a more controlled trial. And with persimmon, yeah, it's true that from scat, some seeds, especially the ones that require, like a lot of seeds develop to be spread by birds, right? Every seed usually has an animal. Some seeds don't, because they're like bodark, right? The Osage orange or avocados, they were eaten by the ancient prehistoric megafauna that's gone, right? But a lot of seeds are sort of evolved to be dispersed by birds. So those seeds, like Chile Pekin, for example, that's kind of, it's not like your bell pepper or whatever. If you just put it in a wet towel, yeah, you might get few to germinate. But if you treat it with sodium or potassium nitrate, for example, which mimics the birds actually have alkaline digestive tract, as opposed to like mammals tends to be acidic, right? So if you treat it in potassium nitrate, or you can scrape some poop from your car, you know, if it's parked under the tree, or chicken, whatever, that will make the Chile Pekin, the bird pepper, right? The Pekin germinate real good. In terms of other animals, if you ever wanted to grow, for example, mesquite, which people always, why would you want to grow mesquite? You know, but my friend, he needed to grow mesquite in his nursery, right? Like thousands of them. So he would feed the pods to his longhorn, and then he would get it, you know, nice and ready from the other end, and it just 90% germination rate. With the persimmon, we are talking about Texas persimmon, right? Not the Virginiana, the black one, the Texas one. Yeah, I recommend you the best way is to plant it fresh. When you get the fruit, just depulp it. Usually what I do, I mash it, I put it through a sieve or one of those food processors. I separate the pulp, that goes into dehydrator on that vinyl sheet, and I make like fruit leather out of it. It's really good. And then the seed, I just plant it straight away. Maybe I aerate them for 2 days, but you don't need to, they're fresh. And plant them where you want to grow them. Don't plant them in flats and then you try to no. That root, it's so brittle. It's very hard not to break. That's super brittle root. So plant it where you want it to grow and try it in a pot this year and fresh.
Yeah, because it's pretty fresh after it comes out of the animal. I mean, they've eaten it when it was right.
Yeah.
And I go out and look at that stuff every day. I mean, it's on my driveway, so it's pretty easy to find.
Right. So you really want the animals to collect the seed for you. I'm getting. No, I don't know.
I mean,
It should.
so much that I'm like, this plant will even germinate.
Okay, so I would recommend then a scientific trial. Collect that scat, and since it's there, there's got to be persimmon somewhere where it's eating from. Okay, yeah. So find one that's fresh and plant in one pot the scat, and in one pot fresh seed, and let's see what happens. I did this year. Someone brought me scat. I was looking for anaqua, you know, the sandpaper tree. I don't see them that often here. They're smaller here. There's some beautiful, huge one in San Antonio. There's
some on Lake.
big ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here, Festival Park.
Oh, Festival Beach. Okay, I need to go check them.
Further down.
Oh, further down.
For the.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Volunteer seed collection, you know, people. We also use iNaturalist. Probably some of you use it as well. We use it for seed collection. It's awesome because you don't even need to fill out the form. We require a form where you gather all the information, when, where you collected it, and so on. If you do it with iNaturalist, you just take a picture, you make observation out of it, and you send us the observation ID with the seeds. That's all you need to do, because it already records like everything. And I planted some anaqua from scat just probably a month ago. Beautiful. I wasn't sure. Anaqua, it's a lot of seed. So when I feel good about like seed that I have tons of it, and I'm not sure about germination rate, I plant 2 per plant bed, just in case. So I planted two, and 90% of them came out. So anaqua worked for me from scat. I don't know. Yes?
Mexican plum, how much do you have to scarify that? Do you have to scarify that?
No. Mexican plum, you don't scarify. You just require stratification. There is one key thing. that when you harvest it, the theory goes that it's not quite 100% mature, the seed. So they recommend worm stratification after collection, before you do cold stratification. Now, what I do, I just put them in a bucket and I let them kind of ferment or rot, because that's what would happen naturally. And that kind of finishes off the seed and also helps you clean it. So I have in my fridge 2,500. We have huge Mexican plum in front of our office and had bumper crop last year. So we stratify probably 2,500 from that. I'm about to plant them, so I don't know yet. It's been stratified since probably before, I don't know, since November or something like that. But the rejects from that batch, there were some that look kind of, I thought they were no good. I just threw them in a pile of mulch and forgot about them. And those sprouted probably almost a month and a half ago. So I got probably 80 of them. Just so sometimes it's just easier to do what nature would do. But you need to do it in some controlled way. For example, air pruning beds. We use that a lot for walnuts or even acorns, because you don't want to have bags and bags of acorns in your fridge. It's a lot of bulk, you know, and walnuts the same. So you just build yourself little bench. You can repurpose some frame that you have lying around, put the bottom hardware cloth on the bottom, fill it with some loose compost type soil, and put your plums or your nuts or your acorns there and cover it completely with hardware cloth so nothing can get in to eat your nuts or acorns or whatever, and just water it once in a while and forget about it. I planted 500 walnuts like that, and right now they're all popping up, and then you just harvest them because there is no bottom again. It has that same hardware cloth at the bottom of the bench. The roots will get air pruned in the same way. When it's time to pull them out, you will have beautiful roots, and you can tease them apart easily because you put just a loose kind of material. So I would recommend try two things. Stratify it in the fridge for at least 2-3 months, and at the same time throw some somewhere outside, cover them with mulch.
I'm doing all that.
No? Yeah, that can be tricky, but that should work. There is another thing sometimes that you can use. We are kind of, for some seeds, gibberellic acid or different, you know, hormones or chemicals that can stimulate the germination. We pretty much just use on some seed gibberellic acid sometimes, but yeah, it's stratification, trials, and literature. There is in these books, we are also trying to interview all the growers and collect that information, sort of like continuing on the work of Jill Noakes. A lot of the information that she has, it's great information. A lot of it is a little anecdotal. It's like, oh, this guy says this guy says that, you know? So we want to keep building on that. So yeah, please, if you have any questions, doing any trials, just reach out to me, and whatever I can, I'll give you some advice or some tips.
So I had lots of little volunteer Mexican ones come up and meet my Mexican ones. Did I not?
Oh yeah. You can, yes.
Yeah.
We did the same thing at our office. We collected, as I mentioned, those 2,500, but we didn't get all of them. So we had like hundreds of them under the tree. Wait after a rain, and don't wait too long. Like usually when it emerges and it's maybe like 4 or 5 inches like this, the root's gonna be, it's not as bad as like pecans or acorns. It's a smaller root and it will be already branched. So those are easy to transplant depending on the soil that you have underneath that tree. If it's some decent, somewhat loose soil, wait after a rain, not right away, but maybe a day or two after a rain. Get one of those digging forks, loosen the soil and pull them out, and they transplant actually fairly well.
Don't need to put them in a pot first.
You can, you don't have to. We put it ours up. We put them in those deep pots, those plastic, you know, and we we were really careful about it. One volunteer and myself, I don't know if I have pictures somewhere, but we dug up probably close to 100 because we just felt, it's a waste, you know. And we lost probably 3. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, that's correct. I know this as I was digging them, they were all saplings, and suddenly I dug one out and it has big piece of root attached to it at the bottom. I said, oh, it's root. So I marked it because it will be genetically the copy of the mother tree, which I love because it's a huge, I'm rarely seen. If you happen to come to TreeFolks or if you ever been there, there is one in front of our office. It's enormous. Yeah. Got defoliated by leaf cutter ants. Yeah, that's my leaf cutter ants at the nursery.
So Terry on Zoom, she asked, what do you recommend to use as a moist medium for stone fruit and other seeds needing embryo dormancy? How long do you recommend the seeds in moist medium in the refrigerator?
Okay, stone fruit. Okay, yeah. I have some peach pits that I'm growing for rootstock as well. We don't do many fruit trees, but we do some for a neighborhoods program, and I like to mess with it. Anyway, but stone fruit, I use personally vermiculite, but that's just my preference. You could be using, I guess, peat moss, or you could. I like to use vermiculite or vermiculite with a little bit of peat moss, maybe. And I do usually about 3 months cold stratification. Yeah.
I have a few questions. So you had mentioned like, there's like a strategy with the seeds where there's like a little bit of succession where they're growing at different times. So I saved some like Buckeye seeds from, last year, and I want to grow those now, but is it too late to start them?
No, Buckeyes are good, and they're actually one of the easier things to grow. They're funny because they're floaters. Some seeds are floaters, some seeds are sinkers, right? It's kind of interesting when you are cleaning them or separating them. Buckeyes will float because of the anatomy. There's a little hole even you can see on one end of Mexican Buckeye. They don't have, so the water can get in. So what I do, I aerate them for about 3 days with that aquarium pump, give them little air. Next day, you put them one day, they're all floating. You come the next day, overnight, they're all at the bottom. So as the water gets in, they imbibe and they sink. And then you plant them, they still have little staggered germination, but it's not terrible. Like probably within a month, they will be gradually germinating. I direct seed them, they have pretty good germination rate. So I just put one per cell or one per plant band, and over a period of month, maybe they will be coming out, but not hard to grow.
My other question is, so for example, like the Texas persimmon,
Uh-huh.
right? So it's dioecious.
It
Is
is.
there a way to know, like when you're collecting seeds, like how do you, is it just a crapshoot knowing what, if it's gonna be a.
Yeah, you don't know until it blooms. Yeah. From the flower, you can tell.
When can you tell what?
Well, as soon as you see the flower, you can, it's because it's a big fruit, right? Relatively speaking. Okay. So you should be able to sort of see it in the fruit where the fruit's going to be. So you can tell female pretty easily from the anatomy of the. No. I was thinking about it, maybe grafting it, grafting male and female on the same thing. I don't know.
So I have a person, didn't bloom, I thought, oh, I have a male. It just bloomed, little tiny flowers, is that the female flower?
Well, they look kind of similar from afar. You need to look closer, but you can see the stamp on the males, you see the pollen, and on the female you see at the center, where the seed will develop. So you can tell, I don't. Yeah, you can still see it. They are little, but they are small. Yeah, yes, but it's on the other side. It's like tomato versus like the squash, like the fruit it's inside. What's the term? You know what I mean? Like kind of like tomato. Yeah. Yes. I mean, females, they both, yeah, of course, yeah. They're the issues, yeah.
I have a big potting soil.
Uh-huh.
I was thinking, I throw seeds in there, just randomly, fruit tree seeds, and they come up.
Yeah.
Whenever they want to, and so when they do, I pull them out and pot them, but I don't really like.
You don't know what they are.
Oh, sure.
Well, the species well, the species you do because you can tell, but like, how do you know what it was originally if you put bunch of different? Okay. Yeah, I do that too. I have a pile because I hate throwing any seed, even if I think it's bad, it's old, it's dead. You would be surprised, Like I had some 9-year-old seed, Sisyphus obtusifolia, which is lodebush. It's related to jujube. It's the same genus. It's a little shrubby thing, right? I had it in the bottom drawer of my fridge for like 9 years. It wasn't like in deep freeze or anything. It was just sitting there, finally my wife, I guess, is cleaning like the vegetable drawer and your seeds. I'm like, oh, and yeah, it still grew, and so I throw all the old seeds in a corner in a pile of mulch, and yeah, it's kind of fun to see what comes up, yeah, for sure. Yes.
Are there trees that have too many seeds? You don't want that seeds?
Very good question. Thank you. Well, at this point, I will still take everything because if we have excess, we have way of sharing it with other groups, other people, and also we have a contract with Watershed Protection Department where we not only plant saplings, but we also do dispersal. So if I have excess, I will just scatter it around or drill it in. But to answer your question more appropriately, yes, we have tons of mountain laurel and tons of Mexican buckeye. Those are the two top,
So you don't need it.
No, but if you have, here is the thing, please prioritize sending us big batches of seed. If you see that there's bumper crop, unless it's a rare seed that we have it somewhere on our list, it's rare. I won't even I will take 5 seeds of Texas Madrone. That's fine. But people send us like 10 Mexican buckeyes or 6 walnuts. It's great. We are grateful. I have a box where I just put mix and match everything, but it's nice. Focus on if you find like some bumper crop, if you come across really abundant seed, and don't take all of it, obviously, take maybe 10% or 20%, leave it for. That is true. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, in your bag, unless you wanted to share with a squirrel or something. I don't know. No.
Again, what to do with all the old trees that are 4 or 5 inches.
Oh, the little ones. Yeah.
The ones that say that attack.
Yeah, I mean, it can be done, but it's kind of difficult. So if you get it, the sooner you get it, the better. As you see it popping up, like barely, you still see just like germinating from the acorn. That's your best bet, because by the time you see like the little sprout coming out, there's already root, and the longer you wait, the harder it will be for you to get it out. If you can get them out intact, perfect, you're good.
But for it to actually grow, how much of that cap? Do you have to have the entire capsule?
It's like, okay, if you break little piece, it might survive, but yeah, try not to not to break it, Yeah, but it's good if you have so many and you will be mowing over them or whatever, someone will be just stepping over them, then you might as well give it a try, right? And if you have a lot, you can put them up and give them away. Or if you dug up a bunch of them, put them in plastic bag with some moist paper towel and we'll take them. If you have a lot, will even like arrange picking them up if it's out of your way to come to us, you know. But if they're freshly collected, dug up, and you keep them moist, we'll pick them up.
So, I saw that video, I'm sure you've seen it online, where there's like the seed robots, where they have these like little.
Oh, I saw it. Yeah.
Like little spirals.
Yeah.
that They use like the strategy of another kind of plant.
I don't know.
like, they do
I'm
the
I'm
same
kind of
thing.
skeptical about like gimmicky things like that. Maybe it works. I don't know. It could. But you know what's a good strategy too? If you want to reforest something, just put a bunch of posts and run some wires. Make a bunch of perches, you know, and let the birds do it, you know, and you will have lines of probably mostly hackberry. But hackberry, hey, hackberry, it's an important
That's true.
species. Yeah. Well, then you need to call Cliff Tillich. You know Cliff?
Yeah.
I went with him a couple of months ago. He took me to Walnut Creek Park to show me all his girdling of ligustrum. He developed quite a system there. It's amazing. So he goes and he girdles them, and he has this theory. I think it's true though, because I was like, okay, so you let them stand. He girdles them, they dry out, and then they stay there until they rot and fall down. And I was like, okay. And I'm asking him about suckers. How about the, sprouts from the bottom, he said, no, because when you girdle it, you block the carbon going down, but the water's still going up. So basically you dry out as it's dying, it's still pulling water from supposedly, that's his theory, but it seems to work because I didn't see a lot of, or they were sprouts and then they dried out and died too, which is kind of weird. It wouldn't happen anyway. Ligustrum, yeah.
Sorry, does he have a solution to China berry?
Yeah, I don't know. Invasive. We have a program. Our newest program is bring invasive, we give you native. So if you bring whatever, you hack a ligustrum and drag it to, we'll give you a native.
How long does it take for
I think he showed me that sometimes you need to go back maybe once and redo it a little bit because it tries to, but it takes like, completely kill it. I think within like maybe few months, couple months, it completely like dries out. Yeah. Now, if you go to Walnut Creek Park, and it's crazy, once he showed me, then I saw girdled ligustrum everywhere, because you see, if it's dry, you look at it, and sure enough, like girdled, you see how it's trying to heal. There's some like of that callus there, Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But yeah.
What do you have a favorite tree that you like to grow? Or like, I don't know, for whatever reason.
From here, native?
Yeah.
Native
or
to here?
Even like not native.
I like generally, like, because I'm from Europe originally, right? So you're comparing like the cousins, right? The species that are here, there, and then you come here. What happened to you? Okay, you separated 80 million years ago or whatever. So I like basswood. I know we are not quite in the range. We are on the edge, maybe Oklahoma, maybe East Texas, but there's a big basswood or linden tree at the San Antonio Botanical Garden. So I like that tree a lot. From like true natives, yeah, I probably Blanco crab apple. I have soft spot for it somehow. Yeah.
There's some at UT.
A UT?
Yeah.
Oh,
I just remember seeing
Blanco. Yeah.
I made wine from it.
From crab apple, Blanco crab apple?
Yeah.
I grafted one on a apple rootstock this year. It's kind of weird. I had this apple, it was Anna, and it finally Cytospora got it. I tried for few years I was excising the cankers and putting sulfur and doing all sorts of things. Finally, it succumbed and some shoots grew from the rootstock. And I don't know what kind of rootstock, I don't know, but I grafted Blanco crabapple on it. Yeah. Because I don't know, I always wanted one and I killed few. I grew them from seeds. There's a reason probably why they grow in such a small area, you know, if you think about it, they are limited to such a small area. We had one more question there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, try to get something going, eastern cedar. In National County, the only place I ever see it is with the birds.
I have not grown that one, no. So I wouldn't. You have seed?
Yeah, it's, you know, it's male, female tree, so
Mhm.
females are starting to put out the seeds. And I know that you need to wait on, they're fairly soft.
Mm-hmm.
Right on the pea-sized plums that they look like.
Okay.
So, you know, it's Christmas tree shape.
Eastern cedar. Yeah, it's gonna be here in this book. So yeah, send me I'll follow up on that one with you. If you can send me an email and I'll look it up. I don't know. That would be great. Yeah, so we can try to. I'm growing cypress and I'm gonna do some I just got 2,000 loblolly pine seeds. So we do in Bastrop some work too. So yeah, that's what we're gonna be doing as far as conifers.
So if you get a bunch of seeds, you don't wanna mail it, you just bring it back.
Oh, absolutely. Either you drop it off. We have a box in our porch. There's a box that's supposedly squirrel proof. It's just a plastic tub with a rock on it. So you can either drop it in that box if there's nobody around. If you wanna tour or you wanna see something, come during, I'm there every day. And if you wanna work a little bit, come on Wednesdays or Thursdays, 9 to 12. If not, any day, I'm usually there from 8 to 3, more or less. So yeah, that's you'll find me if you want to tour, and if not, drop it in the box. If not, mail it, or if you have a ton of seeds, we would even pick them up.
So I just wanted to remind everybody that a few things, so we have a tree ID walk here on Saturday at 9 AM. On the 13th, so not this weekend, but the following weekend. And then this presentation will be online on our YouTube channel, so you can always watch